Millionaire's son spits on royal guard. Instant payback. Tyler West woke up in his penthouse suite, the soft rays of the morning sun filtering through the large windows that overlooked the city. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and croissants drifted in from the kitchen, where his private chef had already prepared breakfast. But Tyler didn't care about breakfast. Not today. He stretched lazily, rubbing his eyes, and pushed the cash scattered across the bed aside, remnants from last night's wild party. Champagne bottles, empty liquor glasses, and wads of cash laid there like trophies from another night of indulgence. In his world, no one ever told him no. He had everything he could possibly want: luxury cars lined up in his garage, women who came and went like clockwork, and a life of endless entertainment. Nothing ever changed, and he had grown bored of it all. His phone buzzed next to him, and he reached for it without hesitation. Instagram was flooded with likes and comments, hundreds of them, from people who were just as idle as he was. He didn't even bother to look at the messages. He simply scrolled through the endless feed of people living lives that were just as shallow and predictable as his. He was so tired of the same old routine, the same parties, the same people. He craved something new, something exciting. And then, as he stared at his reflection in the phone screen, an idea struck him. "Damn, I haven't messed with those royal guards in a while," he muttered to himself, a smirk spreading across his face. He didn't waste any time. He dialed his driver. "Bring the Maybach around. We're going downtown." 15 minutes later, Tyler was lounging in the back of his Mercedes Maybach S680, a gold lighter encrusted with diamonds twirling between his fingers. He didn't care that the lighter alone cost more than his driver's annual salary. It was just another accessory in his world of excess. Everything around him was meant for his comfort. He didn't need to rush for anything. "Got to give my followers some entertainment," he mumbled to himself, more to no one in particular than to his driver. "Those guards look like statues. Let's wake them up." As they neared Buckingham Palace, Tyler leaned back, staring out the window with a bored expression. Little did he know, the thrill he was about to chase would turn into his biggest mistake. Tyler's Maybach glided smoothly through the streets of London, and as they neared Buckingham Palace, he couldn't help but feel the familiar rush of excitement. He had always been a man who loved the spotlight, always the center of attention, always in control. But today, the usual crowd at his parties, the shallow Instagram likes, had lost their thrill. He needed something more, something to shake things up, something that would grab the world's attention. And there, standing like perfect statues at the gates of Buckingham, were the royal guards. Tyler grinned, feeling a surge of arrogance. He had seen them before, standing still, unwavering, symbols of discipline and tradition. But in his eyes, they were nothing more than props in his world of entertainment. The moment he stepped out of the car, he could feel the eyes of the tourists around him, drawn to his designer suit and the aura of wealth that surrounded him. He had money, status, and an image to uphold. His perfectly tailored Gucci suit, with its gold accents, screamed luxury. Underneath it, he wore a black Balenciaga t-shirt that barely hid the fact he was just one step away from being untouchable. His sneakers? Crisp white Dior, untouched by pavement. The crowd parted for him as if it was just another day in his world. "Let's see if they can actually move," he muttered under his breath as he pulled out his phone, turning on a live stream. Tyler was used to attention, but today, he was going to make sure everyone knew who he was. "Yo guys, your king is back," he said, his voice oozing with self-satisfaction. "Today, we're gonna see if these guys can actually move." The crowd around him began to murmur, but no one dared to stop him. A few tourists had already pulled out their phones, sensing something was about to unfold, but none of them realized just how far Tyler would push things. With a dramatic swagger, Tyler walked straight up to one of the royal guards. The soldier didn't move, his eyes fixed somewhere beyond reality, as though nothing in the world could break his focus. But to Tyler, this was the perfect opportunity for entertainment. He waved his hand in front of the guard's face, sneering as he waited for a reaction. "Are you even alive, dude?" Tyler taunted, his smirk growing wider. The crowd shifted, unsure of how to react, but Tyler, in his arrogance, felt like a king with no boundaries. What he didn't know was that this moment was about to turn into his worst decision. The energy around Tyler was electric. The tourists whispered, the cameras clicked, and Tyler reveled in the attention. But as the moments passed, his arrogance began to grow. His live stream was booming, his followers commenting in real time, egging him on. The more he mocked the royal guard, the more he felt like a king in his own world. He could feel the thrill of the moment, the excitement building, and the tension among the crowd. But Tyler didn't notice it, the shift in the atmosphere, the tension that was growing around him. He didn't care. He had crossed the line before. This was no different. The royal guard remained still, unblinking, unfazed by everything Tyler threw at him. It only made Tyler want to push harder. The smirk on his face deepened as his next move began to form. He wanted to break the guard's resolve, to prove that nothing was sacred in his world. "Look at this robot," Tyler taunted, his voice dripping with condescension as he spoke into the camera. "Do they even check if you're still breathing, or are you on power-saving mode?" The crowd stiffened, some uncomfortable, others still recording, but Tyler didn't notice. His eyes locked onto the stoic soldier in front of him, the quiet tension almost palpable. Tyler's sense of power surged. This guard, this symbol of discipline, was nothing more than a pawn in his game. His thumb hovered over the phone, glancing at the growing number of comments in the live stream. "Yo, do you even know who you're standing in front of?" Tyler sneered. He jabbed a finger at his own chest, puffing himself up. "I'm the son of Mark West. This suit costs more than your whole paycheck, and you're just standing there like a damn piece of furniture." The murmurs from the crowd grew louder now. There were whispers of disapproval, and a few people were beginning to feel the discomfort of what was unfolding. But Tyler was beyond caring. He was untouchable. He was the star of this show, and no one could take that from him. And then, in one reckless, impulsive moment, he did it. Without a second thought, Tyler leaned in close to the guard, a grin spreading across his face, and spat right in front of him, landing the spit directly on the immaculate uniform. The crowd gasped. Time seemed to freeze. For a brief moment, there was complete silence, as if the entire world had paused. Tyler stood there, still smug, still filled with arrogance, completely oblivious to the shift in energy around him. But as the spit hit the guard's uniform, everything changed. The air around them thickened. The tension was no longer invisible, it was real. And it was about to explode. The moment the spit landed on the royal guard's uniform, everything shifted. It was as though the entire square had taken a collective breath, holding it in suspense, waiting for something to happen. For a brief second, time seemed to freeze. Tyler stood there, a twisted grin still plastered on his face, unaware of the storm that was about to hit. The tourists, once laughing and cheering, now stood in stunned silence. The guard, who had remained motionless for so long, showed no immediate reaction, but the air around him changed. Then it happened. The royal guard's jaw tightened, his posture shifting imperceptibly. Tyler didn't notice. He was too busy basking in the reactions flooding in from his live stream. He was on top of the world, feeling invincible, his followers egging him on in the chat. But the tension in the crowd had reached a breaking point, and the moment that it seemed like a joke was about to snap. Without warning, the guard moved. The swift, precise motion sent shockwaves through the crowd. Tyler had no time to react. A force slammed into his chest, the butt of the rifle crashing into his solar plexus with brutal efficiency. The impact was instantaneous, knocking the wind out of him and sending him stumbling backward. He gasped for air, but the pain in his chest was overwhelming. His vision blurred, his legs buckled, and in an instant, Tyler collapsed to his knees, struggling to catch his breath. The crowd erupted in shock. Some people screamed in disbelief, others laughed nervously, but most just stood frozen, unsure of how to process what had just happened. Phones, which had once been focused on Tyler's antics, now zoomed in on his humiliating fall. The guard remained stoic, unwavering, his gaze cold and disciplined, like a figure carved from stone. "Did you see that?" someone whispered. "He totally deserved it." Tyler gasped for breath, his hands clutching at the air, but he couldn't get enough oxygen. His whole body felt like it was on fire from the brutal strike. He couldn't understand what was happening. This wasn't supposed to happen to him. He was Tyler West, the untouchable heir, the king of his world. But as he knelt there, gasping, the reality began to sink in. His arrogance, his disrespect, had just come crashing down. And now, the consequences were rushing in faster than he could escape. Two police officers appeared from the crowd, their presence like an anchor pulling Tyler out of his dazed state. They moved toward him with steady, deliberate steps. Tyler, still on his knees, looked up in shock as the officers approached. He tried to scramble to his feet, but his body refused to cooperate. The humiliation was complete. "You're under arrest for assaulting a royal guard," one of the officers said, his voice calm and unwavering. Tyler opened his mouth to protest, to explain that it was just a joke, but the words caught in his throat. His live stream had died down, the chat now flooded with a mix of mockery and disgust. His world, once so carefully curated and controlled, was now unraveling before his eyes. The reality of the situation hit him like a freight train. He wasn't in control anymore. And there was no escaping the consequences of his actions. As the police officers yanked Tyler to his feet, everything he had once known about power and control felt like it was slipping through his fingers. His mind raced, but his body was heavy and weak from the shock of the blow. The once unshakable confidence that had defined him, that had allowed him to walk through life like he was invincible, crumbled in an instant. The weight of the handcuffs around his wrists was a harsh reminder that he was no longer in charge. The crowd, which had once been enamored with his every move, now stared at him with a mixture of disbelief and satisfaction. The once feared heir to a billion-dollar empire, the king of his own world, was now nothing more than a spectacle for the masses. Phones were still pointed at him, capturing every second of his humiliation. Laughter echoed through the square, though it wasn't the kind that Tyler had expected. His followers, those who had cheered him on, now flooded the comments with mockery and derision. The likes had dried up, replaced by a flood of comments condemning him for what he had done. "You're done," someone whispered, and Tyler's stomach twisted. As he was dragged across the pavement, he tried to protest, tried to fight back. "You don't understand," he gasped, struggling against the officer's grip. "I'm the son of Mark West. You can't do this." His words fell flat. They didn't carry the weight they once did. The officers, unmoved by his name or his pleas, didn't even acknowledge his desperation. He was nothing now, just another man who had crossed the line. The reality of the situation hit Tyler like a hammer. The guards, the power, his father's name, it all meant nothing. The world didn't care about his wealth or status. All that mattered now was that he had disrespected one of the oldest symbols of British tradition, and there would be no escaping the consequences. Within hours, his downfall had gone viral. The video of his humiliation, from the taunts to the slap of the rifle's butt, was everywhere. News outlets ran the story, and social media exploded with comments. "That's what you get," people said. He thought he was untouchable. The brands that once courted him began to distance themselves. Gucci, Dior, and every luxury brand that had once seen him as their golden boy now publicly severed ties. The worst part wasn't even the public shaming, it was that no one came to his defense. Not his father, not his business associates. No one. Tyler, who had been surrounded by yes-men and luxury, was now completely alone. The lessons of his arrogance, his entitlement, were being broadcast to the world. The very privileges that had once shielded him were now the chains that bound him to his fall from grace. And as Tyler sat in a holding cell, his phone in hand, he was greeted by the flood of hate comments on his social media. The digital applause for his fall was loud, unforgiving. He had tried to be the king, but now his crown had been shattered. What do you think about Tyler's downfall? Was he asking for it, or did the royal guard go too far? Do you believe his wealth and status should have protected him, or was this a lesson in humility? Drop your thoughts in the comments. How far is too far when it comes to disrespecting authority? Let's discuss. Backhand index pointing down.